Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the weekly parenting show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host today is myself, Sister Naveed, and joining me for today's show are Sister Syra and Sister Shabina. Assalamu alaikum to both of you.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well, thank you. It's been a while, Syra, since we've had you on the show.
Yeah.
It's nice to have you back. How are you?
Jazakallah. It's nice to have myself on show as well. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, busy,
It's
busy,
nice.
busy. Schools
Yeah.
are back, so yeah.
Yeah, life's busy again. How are you, Shabina?
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay.
Alhamdulillah. So before we begin today's show, I just want to remind the listeners out there, as always, feel free to contact us. Feel free to give us any feedback. Feel free to give us any suggestions for any future shows on 07779 481822. The show is for you, and we like to keep it as a parenting show from parents to parents. So please do feel free to contribute and give us any feedback. Also, the show should be available on Facebook, Inspire FM. I have been told that it's not been appearing on the YouTube page. I will chase that up and find out what's happening there with Inspire FM. And hopefully you should be able to listen back or share the show via the YouTube connection as well, but definitely on the Facebook of Inspire FM. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, without any further delay, I'd like to introduce today's topic, inshallah, and let's see where the show goes. My topic for today, Shabina and Syra, is confident yet reflective parenting. What does that mean to you? Either one of you can begin. When I introduced the topic, what went through you? What did you think? How do you view confident yet being a reflective parent?
I'll go first, inshallah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think a confident parent is somebody who knows what they're doing, who has confidence in their practice, has confidence in how they're raising their children, and thought it through, to be honest. I think that's what it means by confident. And with that comes being reflective. You can't just be confident without being reflective. You have to reflect on, what you're doing, is it right, is it wrong, what can we improve, how can we do better? So I think that's what it means.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Syra, what are your initial thoughts when I introduced the topic?
I thought the topic was quite different. Reflective, I think, with being a teacher myself, I think, every training that we had, we're always told to reflect on, what's been good, what can have improved. So, it's like second nature to us anyway. But about confidence, I think confidence parents is, when they, as Shabina said, having confidence and being able to have a clear, consistent expectations. Also, if you're confident, when you're confident person anyway, even if you have done anything wrong, you're able to apologize and take responsibility for your mistake. And reflective is, you reflect on what you've just done, if there has been anything that could have been made better, or I think with parents, you're always thinking about, you're reflecting on what you've just done. So if you're like in a bad mood, and if you do seem to have a go at your child, you before they, or if they, when they're sleeping, you think about, you shouldn't have done that, and you feel guilty. So I think reflective parenting would be that. I don't know.
Jazakallah khair. Good points by both of you there as definitions. I mean, we're going to come to the reflective bit later, but one of the things that you've mentioned, Syra, that I do want to touch upon, you just mentioned you're both teachers. Alhamdulillah, you're both maths teachers, so it's a room full of maths teachers today. And in our jobs, we are taught to reflect. That's absolutely true. And I don't think there's a single job out there, even I was going to say unless you're self-employed, but I'm self-employed as a life coach. But when I was doing my course and gaining my qualification, one of the things that constantly came up was self-reflect, scrutinize yourself to improve yourself. even from a dawah perspective, which has been a part of my life from my, youth days, from my university days, one of the prime concepts that I learned through my study of the deen was self-reflect. Yeah, and this concept of ikhlas halis, to take a step back, to look within yourself, to find areas of improvement, areas of correction, and put your hands up to your mistakes as well. And unless you own your mistakes, you're not going to change or improve yourself. And these things are so crucial and so important. And you've actually taken me back, Syra, to that time when I came into the deen, and how cautious and careful I was about discussing Islamic concepts, because of the onus and the responsibility. And when I'd be put forward as a speaker to do a talk or to address an audience, and I'd think, what if I'm going to make a mistake? What if I'm going to get the hadith wrong, or the ayah wrong, or the explanation wrong? And that cautiousness and that carefulness was to an extent where it could paralyze me within that situation. So this paralysis could kick in. So I see the fact, one point is paralysis, and we'll probably come to that at some point to discuss that. But the other point about the second nature to self-reflect in our jobs, do we really apply that to our parenting? Do most parents, do you think, you two as parents, did you come into parenting self-reflecting, or is this something that came to you later? And do you think parents around you do self-reflect?
I think when I came into parenting, I think I wasn't as reflective because I was quite young when I had my kids. So but I think as I'm maturing, I am being more reflective. I think in terms of other parents, I think it's 50-50. Some parents are quite cautious and they do reflect. But I think others are not so reflective. So and I think sometimes it does, like, I think some kids become like that as well. So if they have made a mistake, they won't reflect. So they'll say that, we've done that. So and they don't know even concept of reflecting. So
yeah. What are you thinking, Shabina?
I was just thinking about myself. I don't think when my children were really young, when they were born, I don't think I was as reflective. However, when a problem occurs, that's when you reflect. So for example, if my baby wasn't eating, then I'd be reflecting on why isn't she eating? What can I do about it? Or if they're throwing a tantrum, what can I do? What should I do? That's when you actually sort of reflect, when you've got a problem. So I think that's how I got thrown into parenting and reflecting. But generally speaking, I do this more now. It is more as we're maturing and as the children are getting older, there'll be more issues that arise. It just gets harder, and therefore you are pushed to reflect. If your teenage daughter is giving you attitude, you are pushed to, okay, what can I do about that? What do I need to do about that? What is there something that I should do about this? And that's when you reflect, you become confident. I think that's I think it's a true statement. When you do reflect, you will become confident in yourself. When you think about, okay, I should have done this. This if I do this will be better. Or if you discuss with other parents, these things will make you a confident parent and reflective, and they both absolutely go hand in hand. You have to reflect. In our workplace, we're always doing what went well, even better if. So in that sense, we do need to apply it to our parenting, because this is a job. This is this is the biggest job that we've got. Raising our own children. So if we're applying it in our workplace, we should be applying it 10 times in our home.
And I think it's something that, from an Islamic perspective, it's a principle that we constantly apply. This is something that we probably repeated many times on our show over the years and years that we've been running the show, that Islamically you reflect at least twice a day. You wake up, you're grateful, and you reflect on on what you want to do and achieve today, and by the evening you reflect on what you have achieved and what you haven't, and what tomorrow is going to bring. What do you intend to do? So if you're not reflecting, you're not correcting, and if you're not correcting, you're not improving. But one of the things you just said there, Shabina, about problems leading to reflection, would you say, including ourselves, that there's a problem in the way that we view reflection, that reflection is connected to negativity? So only if something happens in your life that's a problem, a situation, a circumstance, we stop and think. Because really, reflection's about thinking, isn't it? Stopping and thinking.
Yeah.
So firstly, is that the case, that we're only reflecting when we hit rock bottom, or when we hit a problem, or we hit a dead end? And is that in itself right or wrong? And are we enough of a thinker that we need to be?
It's not right that we do that when there's a problem, because then you're already in the problem. And it's always better to think ahead. However, we'd always say, in hindsight, we would have done this, or in hindsight, we could have done this. This would be better. But we do need to think ahead. And before a problem comes, we do need to reflect on, okay, what is the best solution? What should I do? How should I raise my children? What does Islam say about raising our children? What does Islam say about manners, morals, everything? We need to think about this. We need to think about how we are raising our children before we raise them, before time slips away. And before you know it, there is going to be a problem. So it's very important that we do reflect before our children grow up, and before problems become bigger. But does it always happen? Unfortunately not.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, there's no particular research here to back up what we're saying, but just a general spectrum based upon what you said and what it triggered in my mind. And even thinking about the parenting coaching and my reading and my research in general that I do, and my clients that I have, and life in this respect, that I think when it comes to parenting specifically, is something that we might reach out and think and take a moment for that, when we've hit rock bottom or a dead end, and we can't deal with it anymore, which in itself is incorrect, and away from Islam in theory, in terms of the way that we are supposed to be approaching parenting. What about your thoughts, Syra? What do you think?
I think I agree with what Shabina has just said. I think it's not right, to always just be reflective when we're in a bad situation, when a problem does occur. I think even with when good situations come up as well, I think we should be reflective as well. And I think it just means that when you're reflective, it's you have better control of your emotion, and what's going inside you, and how you can be better as well. I think just you should be reflective in every situation, not just when you're having problems.
Yeah, it's true. And on that note, as another point that comes to mind in relation to that, is that this is the good times, is when arrogance can kick into us, or a bubble of blankness in our mind, where we're actually not thinking. We're thinking for where we want to be and where we want to go. It really scares me, for example, when people have young children and they're thinking about the kind of people they're going to marry, and how they're going to have grandchildren, and their children are going to become doctors or engineers or whatever it's going to be that their hopes and inspirations are. And I think it scares me because of the way in which we think in our good times. It's without any boundaries, without any hesitation of the sky's the limit. And it's not that there shouldn't be positivity in our parenting, and we shouldn't have hopes and inspirations and objectives and a vision. We should have a near vision and a far vision, with a lot of depth and detail. But I think when we have a vision that is controlled by me without thinking that this little individual that I'm raising is going to grow up to become a character and a personality and have their own hopes and aspirations of what they want to do and how they want to do it and who they want to marry and what they want to study and how they want to live life, what they want to eat and what they don't want to drink. That's when our dreams can become shattered. And it's the overly confident level of good times that can lead to becoming controlling or dictating within that relationship. And it can have its own dangers because the thinking can be of an incorrect level with an incorrect vision as well. So not only reflecting is important, but the type of reflection we're doing as well is also very important. If we look to the advice of Luqman alayhi salam, there was a far vision, which was pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was the near vision of making sure your deeds and your actions are correct. But who sets that parameter, who sets that boundary, who sets those values is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there wasn't any specific, I want you to become this, and I want you to marry this type of a person, and I want you to behave or live within the halal in this way. There were general guidelines and instructions with the permission of, if you want to say permission, but with the understanding of the fact that you're going to make your choices and decisions, but this is your boundary. These are your values. This is your near and far vision, and it involves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think thinking in terms of reflecting is very important, the kind of thinking that we're adopting and involving in that manner. Do I make sense, or have I lost you guys?
No, you have made sense.
Yeah,
you have made sense. I was just thinking, like talking about all of that, I was thinking like what kind of, we want our children to grow up, and the near vision and the far vision that we have of, potentially seeing our children get married, having children and all of that. And the near vision is, what are they doing right now? How are they right now? How is our conversations with them now? And is their thinking involved? This is what came to my mind. Like with my children, are they being reflective? Do they think about their actions? Have I ignited that?
True.
Have I ignited that in them to think and to reflect about their own actions? That's the kind of trail of thought that I went down while you were talking.
Yeah. What about you, Saira? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, inshallah?
I think whatever you've said, I agree with. And I think I've been learning a lot. I wasn't, you don't think about reflection, when you said about the topic, I started reading about it, and I didn't even think like, this has existed. So, it's just a learning for all of us.
It's true. It's true. On that note of self-doubt, Saira, because when we look to reflection, there's so many elements. There's self-correction, it's checking yourself, scrutinizing yourself, and in terms of the self-doubt that you can have, if this is something new to you as well, it's very important to know the difference between self-doubt and reflection. Self-doubt, is a negative approach to reflection. Reflection it should be a positive process of where you are looking to improve yourself. And even if you don't know how to do that, you will reach out to seek advice from family, from friends, from work colleagues, from experts in maybe parenting, and you will want to know how to deal with this issue, how to deal with this situation that you found yourself in with your child. So many parents could be in a situation where they're being abused by their children, where they feel that their children are lost in certain elements of bad behavior and bad circumstances, and they don't know how to bring them out of that. And the parents themselves could just feel like, that's it, I don't know, I can't deal with this, it's out of my hands. And that can lead to paralysis, as we mentioned earlier when Shabina, I think, was making a point earlier. And paralysis can lead to stagnation. So that's when you've reached exhaustion within your parenting to the point of there's nothing I physically or mentally or emotionally can conjure up to resolve this issue, or to even begin to try to resolve this issue. It's just blank. The mind is blank. And that is very, very dangerous. I don't know, your kids are quite young, but have you ever known of anybody to have reached a situation like this? Obviously, just as a case study, or have you ever felt, I can't cope with this? Or have you ever seen, as teachers, scenarios or situations where you've thought, oh my God, if I was dealing with this at home as a parent, I, I don't even know where I'd begin. And how do you deal with that as well?
I think talking about myself, as I mentioned before, I was really, really young when I had my first son. And I think, when he was growing up, I felt that I wasn't a confident person. So I was always doubting myself. And I think that led to me always questioning my, like, what am I doing? So is this the right thing? So the approach that I took of myself was I was, speaking to a lot of people. I was seeking support.
Yeah.
And I think, what you mentioned about self-doubt, I think as a parent, we always self-doubt. We always think, we could have done better. Is this the right way? And I think, sorry, I forgot, what was the second point of your question?
About the paralysisness or the stagnation that it can lead to if we don't do the reflection in a positive way, if it is full of self-doubt.
Yeah.
And also, have you ever seen any case studies of this kind of nature? Have you been exposed to anything like that around you, or seen something and thought, oh my God, if that was my reality, I would just not know what to do. Have you ever given anybody advice on this?
I think in our work, because we work with children, we see a lot of cases where kids have been emotionally, I wouldn't say abusing, but sometimes they do, their parents are quite scared of them, because they want them to have a good future. And I think kids sense that parents
Kids
need
are
us.
intelligent, aren't they?
Yeah,
Kids know what their
kids
parents'
sense.
weaknesses are.
Yeah, so I think sometimes it's not parents are scared of them. I think they just want that family
Display their
bond to be
weaknesses too
there.
much.
Yeah. So, and then they don't want the family ties to be break. And I think kids are, as you said, they're quite intelligent, and they use that sometimes as a benefit, that our parents are not leaving us. Whatever we do, they'll get into it. They won't leave us. And I think when it comes to that, I think sometimes our parents do give in, and that's quite a sad reality. And as myself, I haven't really given anybody advice, because I haven't, they haven't really come and asked me, what should I do? Because, sometimes parents don't even know that they're in that reality.
That's true.
They don't know, what is happening to them, because they don't want to lose their child.
They can't see a way out, and they don't recognize the fact that they're actually becoming maybe a soft target, for the child to feed off and to get what they want out of them, just because the parent becomes intimidated, at times afraid, maybe even apologetic, as a result of the situation and the reality, and they're busy self-doubting themselves rather than reflecting and correcting and re-energizing themselves and dealing with that situation. And like you said, parenting is an avenue where the more you're exposed to other parents, the more you share, the more you then learn that actually I'm not the only one going through this process. There's a lot of forums even online for parents to learn from. So it's not even something that you actually have to go and expose yourself if you're worried about the nature of the situation or the reality, and exposing something that's happening at home in that manner. Shabina, what about yourself? I mean, by the way, you've got a minute
Yeah.
and then we're going into a break and we come back and then you can carry on with your answer. But,
Okay.
what are your thoughts?
I mean, I have been exposed to quite a few like families where the parents are being quite abused, and the child is getting away with doing that, and they've sort of given up. And it's quite sad that they've given up, but upon reflection, they've realized, okay, the mistakes that they've made.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to be going into a break. I'm going to come back straight to you with that, so please don't forget what you were saying. We'll be back straight after the break, and hopefully we'll continue with the second half of the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Stay informed, entertained, and engaged. Check out our new website, inspirefm.org.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the second half of tonight's parenting show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host is myself, Sister Naveed, and joining me for tonight's show are Sister Syra and Sister Shabina. The topic for tonight's show is confident yet reflective parenting. We've exhausted the first half of the show on reflection and the importance of reflection. We're going to be giving that a little bit more time before we move on to how that then leads on to confidence in your parenting. But before we continue and before I go back to Shabina, I just also want to remind the listeners that you can contribute to the show with your comments, your questions, your feedback, and any suggestions on 07779 481822, and that's the WhatsApp line for Inspire FM. Also, feel free to listen back to the show on Facebook on the Inspire FM page, and feel free to share the links and to leave any feedback in the comment section as well. So Shabina, coming straight back to you, we were discussing the self-doubt, the paralysis, the stagnation in parenting, the intimidation that we can feel from the children, and maybe be afraid from them at times. How do we deal with that?
I do remember a situation where it was in front of myself, and a child was, not a child, she's a grown adult, very rude to her parent, and the parent was very embarrassed. And then the parent just kind of backtracked and just sort of laughed it off. And I thought to myself, we didn't go into this conversation because they're a lot older than me, and I was just thinking about this situation and of them being scared of their child. And it just made me think, if we're like that, we are going to be scared of our children. If we give off this impression that, we're embarrassed, okay, we're not going to say anything, the children are going to get away with a lot, and they are going to learn that it's okay to behave like that. I think that's one thing when I was with my children, like raising them, that's one thing that I never showed to them, that I'd be embarrassed. So for example, when my daughter was a toddler, she was throwing a tantrum in the shop, and she was lying down on the floor, and I completely ignored. I'm not going to be embarrassed by that. You're behaving like that, you're not going to embarrass me. And if I need to say something, I will have the confidence to say it. It doesn't matter who's around me or the people around me. If I need to correct a behavior, I will do that. And I think that's really important, because if we allow children, or our children, to get away with being rude in front of other people, and we feel embarrassed, if we allow that sort of behavior, it tells them that it's okay, that my mom's not going to say anything, my dad's not going to say anything, it's okay for me to behave like that. Whereby if we correct it in that instance, if we have that confidence to correct it in that instance, they will be embarrassed, and they will not behave like that. They would be corrected. So I think that's one thing that I thought about.
It's a very, very good example. And at times we learn from people around us. And I think just like if you were at work and you'd watch your colleagues, your heads of departments, or other teachers around you, maybe in your professions, or me as a life coach, I'd be on certain forums with other life coaches just to see how they're tackling a client or a problem, or the children, or you're both maths teachers, like I said, a certain equation or their teaching method. Maths is quite a challenging subject to teach, to keep children engaged, but yet make it interesting, make it fun, but yet make sure that they're hitting their targets. So I'm sure that you're always observing, and you're observing to correct, to learn, to improve. And my concern would be that as parents, are we doing this, or do we have the same attitude with the biggest job description in our life, which is to parent our future generations, who are going to then give birth to future generations, and parent future generations, and the connection. Because for me, reflection is as a result of your intention. So if your intention is that I am a parent because Allah has made me a parent, and I am here with my duty and the most heightened sense of responsibility, that these little babies that I've given birth to, that are now, like you said, grown adults, they could be in their 20s and 30s, and just dragging their parents around, or elderly parents, and children in their 40s and 50s. It doesn't make a difference. You're still a child to a parent. The fact that these children, what we taught them at that tender age when they were in our in our environment, what we corrected, what we didn't correct, the confidence, like you're saying, should be in a shop when the toddlers are in a tantrum, that I'm actually not going to be fazed by this, and I'm going to deal with this confidently. It's all connected back to, why am I parenting in the first place? What am I
I
achieving?
just
Go on,
wanted
Sarah.
to add something. Sorry,
No, don't apologize.
as
Go ahead, yeah.
she was mentioning, Shabina, about a incident. There was an incident in, that I experienced as well, where a child was, having behavior issues, and a parent came into, school quite a few times, and she was constantly, apologizing for the kid's behavior. And we were questioning her, like, why would you apologize for your kid's behavior, because he's the one that's taking the action. I think sometimes parents don't realize that, the kids have grown up, and they doubt that, their kids can do that sort of stuff.
Like take responsibility for their actions. Is that
they think that our kids can never perform anything like that. And so I think sometimes parents need to realize, their kids have grown up, and they can do, like, mistakes as well, where they need to take accountability of their actions. And not everything it's parents' fault. Sometimes kids need to be accountable of their actions as well, and I think that's how they learn as well. So I think reflective parenting would, as we're just discussing as well, that sometimes our kids can make mistakes as well, and they're learning in that process.
Would you say that it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes parents can become the apologetic parent on behalf of their child, because either they think their child's too young and they don't want to put them in that environment of where they feel intimidated, or they feel like they need to apologize because they're so precious and they're so important to the parent. But what the parent doesn't realize is that they're actually molding them into little monsters.
Yes.
So if we are not teaching our children to own their actions, own their bad behavior, take control and onus of what they've just done, and maybe, apologize to the teacher, or apologize to the neighbor, or to the elderly lady on the street, or the kid next door. I know of somebody who always says you should never air your child's bad behavior. And I understand the fact that you shouldn't just go around bad mouthing your child and their bad behavior. And it's the same as any backbiting or any slander or any discussion. Some parents can be very negative on their children. However, that's very different to training your child to take responsibility for their own actions and their own behavior. So if you're not instilling reflection in your child, if you're not instilling boundaries and values, as we're talking about intentions, if I want my child to take ownership for his or her action, there has to be a reason for that. If I want to protect my child, there has to be a reason for that. If my child's made a mistake, if I'm still protecting my child and not encouraging them to own the mistake and apologize for the mistake, is that really the value of a Muslim? And is that really going to shape my child's character for the future as an adult? And these are the kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves in our parenting as we're going through this, that what are my family boundaries and what are my family values? What is my way of life? What is my vision? We talked about the near and the far vision. And we need to have clarity on that what is our journey in our life, that we're taking our family down and we're taking our children on, so that we don't create the monsters that we're scared of, that abuse us, or what have they been exposed to that has made them like this, and how am I trying to alter that or change that or refine that with confidence. So taking responsibility for actions is crucial, and the sooner we start to do that, like Shabina said, in a supermarket when the child's having a tantrum, that's the beginning of owning it, at that tender age. And then it carries on. It's like the example of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when the toddler grandchild put a sadaqah piece of food, a date, into his mouth, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to the grandchild, "That's spit it out," as if to say that this is bad, this is wrong, because this isn't what we do. And that, I'm just paraphrasing the hadith here, but it was instilling in a toddler right and wrong that is decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that needs to be an atmosphere and an environment. So if the parent lacks confidence, you're going to feed that off to the child. You will find that your children have the same anxieties as you, the same fears as you, the same intimidation as you. If you're confident in yourself and you're showing this confidence, if there's an air of arrogance in you'll be passing that on to your child as well. But if you're confident in yourself, in your boundaries, in your values, in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will also see that, even if it's remnants of that, even if your child is influenced mainly by society that it's surrounded by, which might not be Islamic, you'll see glimpses of it that will give you hope that inshallah, the values that I'm instilling are there, and I need to carry on confidently within this. There is hope, and I'm not going to give up. So these things are important. What are your thoughts, Shabina? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of my own children. If I've done right, if I've done right, if I've made them confident, or if I'm confident as well. I think there is an element that I question about my own self as well. Sometimes we can be overly confident to the point that we're not aligned with our children. We're not aligned with their needs. And I remember a case of one of the parents came in, and the child needed somebody to talk to, and the parent was completely oblivious, and she was just like not having it. No, doesn't need to. And very
dismissive.
Yeah, very dismissive of the child's needs. And I just thought that is confident on a level that you've become ignorant. You've become ignorant to what your child actually needs. You're just so
unaware,
yeah, absolutely. So confident in what you're doing, and you think this is right, whereby you've ignored, you're not aware. So I think that's really important as well, that we are aligned with the needs of our children. We are aligned, and we think about that. I guess that comes with reflecting.
It does. But would you say that's also an element of, maybe having some level of unawareness, ignorance, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, whatever that might be stemming from, and being a bit of a dictator in your parenting? Is my way or the highway, like as if you're raising robots, as if no, this can't be the case, this can't be the situation, I cannot think outside of this box, that my child needs to speak to somebody. It's quite dangerous. It can be quite dangerous, and that's confidence going wrong. And that's why, even when we're confident in our parenting, we need to know why we're parenting in the first place. Intentions goes with reflection and it goes with confidence. You need to know what your baseline is. You need to know what you're working from. I am a confident parent because I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm going to always check in on myself. I'm going to check in with my child. I'm going to know the needs of each individual child, and I'm going to work at the level of each individual child. Confidence doesn't mean, it's not a persona. It's not something we showpiece to the world. It's something that should enable us to build a relationship and a bond with our children. And it has to have a baseline. It has to have clarity and perspective on what you think your purpose of life is, and are you then taking that to your child, each individual child, at their level, and passing it to them in that manner. How does it impact your decision making, confidence in your parenting?
I think, how does it impact my decision
Being
making?
strict, being a confident parent, what's the difference between the two things?
I think they're quite aligned together. Being strict, I would say I am a strict parent, so to say. However, I would say that I do understand the difference between my eldest child and my middle child. I do understand that they have different needs, and we have to play that balance. We have to learn how to adhere to their needs and how to deal with it. For example, my older child, I can just be very upfront with her and she will accept it, whereby the other one is a little bit more emotional. She's a little bit more, she needs a lot more affection, etc. So I would have to, if I tell her to do something, I would have to say it in a different way. So
change your tone.
change my tone. And that takes confidence. And that only comes from reflecting, because then you're reflecting as a parent. Okay, they're different. I need to treat them differently. Like speak to them differently and adhere to that. And I think, I think that's important.
And as a result of that, what you're building in each child, the one that's more emotionally heightened, for example, that we're going to be having to instill a bit more confidence in that individual, into that child. And they might be the same gender, raised by the same parent. But they're two totally different characters and personalities. And whereas the other one, that will just be told and just do it, have so much trust and faith and belief in the parent. My concern as a parent to that child would probably be, are you doing this because I'm asking you, because you love me, or you just trust everything that I'm suggesting is going to be correct, or are you actually thinking about this, and want to create a thinker within our children as well? Question it, think about it.
I think that's always a question. I think that's always a question in my head. Am I creating a thinker? Why should you do this? Why do you think you need? I feel like I say why a lot. And I think that's really important. Even with our teaching, when we're teaching our children in the classroom, we always question why am I doing this? Why are we writing it out like this? And it teaches them and it creates them to think. So that's very important to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come back to that a little bit more in a bit, but Syra, what are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking a lot of things at the moment, but I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a responsibility, and I think children are the best gift that Allah has given us, and children need like a proper upbringing. They are like parenting is most challenging job in the world. And I think instilling confidence into kids as well, it's really important. I think when you said do they go hand in hand, I think definitely. I think confident parenting and reflective parenting go hand in hand. I think if you're not a confident person, you might not be reflecting, that much. You have to, because kids see that you're not a confident person, and that cannot be, sometimes that can be a backlash. And I think when you're a confident person, you're obviously reflecting anyway. And yeah.
I think one of the beauties of our show is the fact that we provoke thought in ourselves as parents, whoever's the guest on the show and whoever is co-hosting with me throughout the show itself. So it's just a message to the parents out there listening that it definitely is something that we are all working on improving and thinking and questioning. So we often go off into a deep thought ourselves whilst the other one's talking, thinking, never thought of it like that. And that's what parenting is about. It's the hands-on job. You're doing it whilst you're put into the situation. You're not going to go and do a degree on it first and get your master's and your PhD and then come back and then do the job.
I wish there was.
Yeah,
there was before becoming a parent.
There's pointers that you can take, definitely, and we've covered them over the spectrum of years that we've been running the show, and we do go back to them every now and again about the Quran and the Sunnah and the advice and the examples of the prophets and the hadith that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself gave us on this situation. But there's always room for improvement. But just focusing a little bit on this point about the strict and the confident parent, the difference between these things and where it's applied. Shabina, you just mentioned about the fact that you would consider yourself a strict parent. I would consider myself a strict parent, but my strictness comes in anything which is ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, I mean, our strictness, our boundaries has to be halal and haram. It has to be fard and what is, mubah, or it has to be, that has to be our boundaries. And that's what we have to instill in our children. Going forward, when our children become older, when they become adults, they have to then decide for themselves what is halal and haram. They have to live to that boundary. So it's up to us as parents to put that discipline in. And I think the reason why I am a strict parent is because I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to Allah that I'm raising these children in the correct manner. And I'm putting these boundaries there. I'm, teaching them, what our boundaries are. How do we cover? Why do we cover? Why do we pray? Why do we wake up for Fajr? These sort of things. And I think, our boundaries has to come from Islam. And when we are ourselves, when we're wishy-washy with this, it's gonna cause problems. It's gonna our children won't respect us for it. If we hold our ground, our values, our belief, and be confident with this, they will learn this and they will take this on board, inshallah. And then we can say to ourselves that, you know what, as a parent, I've done my best. By Allah, I have done my best. Even if obviously Allah guides and Allah can misguide, but at least then we can say to ourselves, we have tried our best. We have done everything that we can. And and
then leave the rest to Allah. And just a couple of points on that as well that you've just provoked thought in me whilst you're discussing that. Firstly, discipline is demonstrated, so we're applying the same discipline to ourselves as we're sharing with our youth and our children around us. And secondly is filtering the discipline as well, because all too often certain cultural practices or my habits, I would prefer my child to have, but not necessarily will they have. My youth might be gathering cans and bottles and plates and cups in their bedroom, and this is just something that I just may not like.
Don't like.
And so it's age appropriate strictness or discipline where the advice of Ali radiallahu anhu now comes to mind in terms of the age and what you do at each age. The note to 7 to 14 to 21 plus about the nurturing it and then demonstrating it and then giving the advice and knowing how to do that. and how to articulate yourself. So when there's certain strictness at the beginning, we might lovingly show our child that you have to do this, and there might come a time where the child is not being obedient to the ihkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then that needs to be demonstrated differently, that I'm still strict, this is still the correct way, I'm very confident on this, and I want you to reflect on this. And if you haven't shown your child how to reflect, we go right back to the point about owning your mistakes and taking responsibility for your actions. At the time of schooling, maybe secondary school might be the best example for this, and not the parent apologizing, but the child apologizing to the teacher, and so on and so forth, or to the neighbor, then they're never going to take leadership and control. And if we haven't shown our children that, hey, even in parenting, I'm reflecting, I'm thinking, I'm trying to get this right, and thinking is important, and it's not selective for work or in your certain parts of your life, but in all parts of your life, then we're never going to produce thinkers. And that's the most important aspect of this. Number one, be confident in your parenting, but yet reflective. And secondly, demonstrate that, share that with your children, and show the love within it and the process of it happening, because it's not happening enough in our society, and it's not being connected to the Aqidah, which should be what drives us and what engraves the confidence and the reflection within us from an Islamic perspective. Believe it or not, we've come towards the end of the show. And I just want to say Jazakallah khair to both of you for joining me today. I want to say Jazakallah khair to the listeners. Please do forgive us for any shortcomings or mistakes. There's so much more that we could have discussed in relation to today's topic. And until next time, please do keep us in your du'as. So Jazakallah khair to you guys, and Jazakallah khair to the listeners as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.